I say, I believe the story of Scripture. Well then, if you believe it, then do it. He said, whatever you desire, believe you have received, and you shall. Well, if I really believe that, I can't say I believe by quoting the Apostles' Creed. That's not belief. Going to church and genuflecting before some man-made little cross, that's not Scripture. Do you really believe the doctrines, the teachings of Scripture? Not the traditions of men, not the rituals, not the outer ceremonies, but the teachings of Scripture. When you pray, believe that you have received and you will. And all things are possible to him who believes. But do I believe that? Well, then believe it. If I really believed I am out of the army, what and where would I be? Well, I would be at home, in my place, 1,000 miles away on Washington Square. If I looked through the window, I would see the Holly Apartments. If I looked to the left, I would see Washington Square. If I looked to the right, I would see 6th Avenue. It's now called the Avenue of the Americas. But then, and still is to me, raised as I was there, it's still 6th Avenue to me. And there I would look at 6th Avenue. Well, I did that night. I saw 6th Avenue. I saw Washington Square. And then I went through the entire apartment and touched these objects with my imaginary hands. Now, was that rational? The world will say that was the most irrational thing that one can do. Now, what is reason? The office of reason is simply to extract, conclusions from premises. Must my premises always be based upon the evidence of my senses? Must they always dictate what is rational to me? Well, having done this and proven it to be a fact, reason doesn't mean to me what it means to the world. For there was sleep in the army, and I wrote a friend of mine who was a Freudian, and he practiced psychiatry in New York City. He was drafted, he was an Englishman too, and he was drafted and he was off in Florida, a man my age. And so when I got out, knowing exactly what I did, I wrote him a detailed letter telling him what I did and how to do it. No, he was a Freudian, and that was something that didn't make sense to him. To him, the whole thing was centered in sex, not in this use of the imagination. So all right. He didn't answer my letter. I got out in 1943, in the spring, in the month of April. Or was it March or April of 1943. They drafted me November the 19th, 1942, and I got out in March 1943. When the war was over and all the other fellows were being discharged, he was discharged. And he said to me afterwards, you know, Neville, I love to come to your lectures and to hear you because it's interesting, it's fairy. You turn my daily bread into the substance of fairy. But while I listen to you, you know what I do? I put my feet right down into the carpet and I hold on to the sides of the chair to keep my sense of the reality and the profundity of things. For he kept on holding his little cot in the army for another 3 years because he couldn't let go and put himself where he wanted to be. So I am telling you how it's done. I am telling you how it's done from my own experience. That my perceptions are not necessarily bounded by organs of perception. I perceive more than sense, no matter how acute they are, could discover. My senses couldn't discover what I am seeing. Only in my imagination could it be done. I'm seeing the Holly Apartments. I am seeing 6th Avenue. I am seeing Union Square. I am seeing the bed, my wife, my child. I hadn't seen them in 3 months, but they're all there. I didn't bring sex into it. No, I didn't go to bed with her. There she was, the girl I loved. She was in her own bed. and I in my own bed. We have twin beds. And my little girl was then just over a year. She was born, not quite a year. She was born in June of 1942, and this was not yet June of 1943. So she was not yet a year old. Here's my sweet little child, Vicky, in her bed. And I walked through the entire thing and touched all the objects and felt them so normal and so natural. Came back to my bed and slept in it. If anyone were sensitive in that room, they would have seen me sleeping there. I was so natural to myself that they would have seen me actually sleeping there. And then the next day, he had a change of mind, but he couldn't act upon it. He was resisting that change. But that which I have done, do nothing. So he resisted it for 9 days, and then he called me in and told me to bring a new application, which I did, and that day I was out. So I tell you how it works. This is the most practical law in the world. He looks into the perfect law, the law of liberty. Well, doesn't that liberate you? If you look into the law of liberty, then what are you now? The man, the woman you really want to be? But then you're in prison, though you're not behind bars. You are in prison by your present concept. You're not behind bars. You're going to go home tonight and sleep as the woman, as the man you really don't want to be. So you are in prison. Now look into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and persevere. Do not only be a hearer of what to do it. And you will be blessed in the doing. That's what Scripture teaches. Go home and read it. I am not misquoting. I am quoting accurately from the Epistle of James in the New Testament. So I tell you, I know from experience how true this statement in James is. Read it carefully. Be doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving yourself. For he who is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like one who looks into the mirror and sees his natural face, and then he goes away and at once forgets what he looks like. But he who is a doer, he looks into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and perseveres. And when he does that, he is blessed in his doing. That is acting, making the thing become alive within you.